Okie dokie, folks, and welcome back to Love Wrestling. I am Kyle Shaw. This is Monday Night Shaw, and joining me at this time is one of my former tag team partners, Danny Mayhem, all the way from the Can-Am Wrestling. And you actually, didn't you just win the Wild Rose Sports Association Cruiserweight belt?
Yes, I did. I beat Davey Disaster, one of my rivals and one of my former tag partners, to become the Wild Rose Cruiserweight champions last Friday at Okotoks.
Nice. And how was the match with Davey?
It was very hard hitting. The weather, it was very warm, weather-wise, and the smoke made
Did
it
you do
worse.
outdoors? Was it what? Were you having to like wrestle in the weather?
Well, indoors, barely any ventilation, and over 200, at least 250 people crammed into the building.
Oh, well, I mean, like, yeah, it sucks that it's hot in there, but at least there's a lot of people in there, and at least it's hot in there, like it's
Exactly.
yeah, right on, buddy. Well, congratulations on the big championship win. I remember, I think the first time I met you was I was traveling with Jordan Aries or something, or I was doing something with Jordan Aries. Jordan Aries was around, and then suddenly you were around with him. And so is that how you got like broken into independent wrestling?
So Jordan Aries is one of my best friends. I've always wanted to get into wrestling. Me and Jordan Aries met back in high school. He was grade 12 when I was grade 10 in the high school amateur wrestling team at that time. And we still kept chatting because we both shared a common interest. And his first, I wouldn't say his first actual show, but at least his first time in Calgary as a wrestler, I was there. I didn't get around that much, so I didn't really know how exactly to get home from the Legion at the time. Obviously now I know very well, but so Jordan was like my main ride home, so I stayed with him, like helped tear down his first show. And then, I was always wanting to do this, so it was going to happen eventually at some point.
Mm-hmm. And so, like, eventually, I guess through your ins with Jordan or whatever, you ended up enrolling in training, becoming trained. And then when did you have your first match, Danny?
So there's two worlds of thought of what my first actual match was. Well, I started training back in the fall of 2019 at Landstorm School. Okay. I needed more training after that, which did hit a little bit of a monkey wrench because of COVID. But my first actual match was against an individual by the name of the Knight of the Apocalypse, Coda, which was
good times.
Which was like a 3-minute squash. Wait, what? Sorry.
No, I'm just saying I've wrestled Coda, the Knight of the Apocalypse, many times.
Oh yeah, that was like my first match. Technically speaking, got an envelope and everything, but that was a 3-minute squash. My trainers at the time.
Was I like tag partners with you in that? Was it like a 3-on-1 like situation?
No, I was just 1-on-1 by myself against him.
Oh, okay. Because I know they put me out there with a couple of guys at different points to go out there and try and wrestle him. Yeah.
Okay.
So but all aside of me marking out for this like name I recognize from the past, how was the match? Like, was it okay?
Yeah, because I've heard he's got a rep of cussing out like new guys.
Yeah, I can attest to that.
What's that, sorry?
I can attest to that.
So, given that reputation, I did not get cussed out after the match. So, I will say that as a badge of honor that I did good, even though it was him just kicking my ass for 3 minutes.
Yeah. Oh boy. What about the alternate reality where your first match was against somebody else?
So my first, I consider this an actual match because it was like 10 minutes. It was a tag team match. It was like November 2021 for Can-Am. The original match was supposed to be TJ Cannon and Davey Disaster versus the, at the time, Can-Am champions Men in Pink. Cannon couldn't make it because of work complications, so last minute, luckily I remembered my gear. They threw me in randomly just to team with Davey at the time. And it was kind of funny. So this was a few days after Halloween. I had a stupid haircut, basically this beard, but I shaved all my head except basically the front bit of my hair. So it was like this weird circle haircut that I did for Halloween.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think I saw pictures of this.
And I kept that at the back alley, and everyone's like, what WTF? That's the most ridiculous thing. So me and Davey fight Men in Pink, and I take the pin. Davey's supposed to beat me up to kind of give him some heat. But Steve Wild looks at the haircut, and he goes, and I thought he was just being sarcastic. He goes, "Can I shave your hair?" Me being a bit of a smart-ass idiot, I decided to go, well, if you have clippers, then go ahead. Reaches into his bag, and he's got clippers.
Yeah, of course he does.
So after the match, Davey
Steve
knocks me
Wilds
out.
always brings his pickle trunk full of fucking goodies.
Yeah, pretty much. So Davey knocks me out, and Men in Pink decide to ambush me, and Wild pulls out the clippers, and they shave my head in the middle of the ring.
That's solid, though. I think that's like a much better first match story than I was. I got my ass whooped by Coda for 3 minutes.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, no, I like the second story a lot better. To just adopt that one in your canon. You know what I mean?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. So you primarily have wrestled for Can-Am Wrestling, but you have done a few other shows outside. I know this because we've been on them together. You've done some RCW stuff. I know me and you had a tag team going for a few weeks there, kind of in Calgary, and that was a lot of fun. I definitely enjoyed it. What would be? I mean, I know my highlight is, but what would be your highlight from our run as a tag team?
I would say we've had almost maybe a tad bit more wins than when I was with Davey Disaster.
Okay, well, definitely my highlight for me is the match we had in Calgary where we both wore Cactus Jack t-shirts and we just had like the most ridiculous hardcore match with I think it was Kato and Tony Machete, and
yes, that match was very fun.
It was a good time. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah, and I liked that we both kind of have like a Mick Foley vibe to us.
Oh yeah.
One of the things I appreciate about that I'm learning right now about you though is that you actually have like an amateur background, and this is blowing my mind because I always just thought you were like this, wild nuts guy who liked wrestling and just became a wrestler. I didn't know you were like actual had like legitimate like high school background in wrestling.
Yes, actually I was more into amateur wrestling before I ever became a pro wrestling fan. Like I got into it in the junior high level. Actually, the first year I was in amateur wrestling in junior high. That's usually in the fall. So that was like when I was in grade 7. So fall,
wow.
grade 7, 2011. Spring 2012 was when I actually became a pro wrestling fan.
Huh. That's amazing. Like I remember they did have like wrestling in when I was in middle school, and I remember they tried to teach it to us once. We did like PE where every 2 weeks we would do it like a new sport or whatever. And for this one section we had wrestling, and the coach got down and he started wrestling me, and he just he knew how to wrestle because he coaches people how to wrestle for 2 weeks every year for the last 20 years. He's been teaching, so he handled me, who at the time had no interest in learning to amateur wrestle and had no even like concept of this wrestling being the same sort of thing that was going on every Monday night, making me go crazy for Stone Cold Steve Austin, right? Because it was not at all the same. I was like, this is like Stone Cold's awesome, but this stuff that we're doing in school is kind of strange to me, and I'm not particularly keen on it, But yeah, no, like when you graduated from the amateur ranks into the professional ranks, like, do you think that having that amateur background has helped you? Because like, I mean, you have like a wild character. Like when I see Danny Mayhem in the ring, I don't think, oh, amateur wrestler. I think a crazy dude who's probably going to eat somebody or something, like, has the amateur wrestling come in handy for your career?
Yes, and it's been a blessing and a curse, and Jordan Ayers can attest to some aspects of this. Me training, one thing I've noticed when I started training, like doing basic things like rolls, since the amateur aspect that was muscle memory for me, that was easy to get.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen people like way more toned, way more athletically, look more like an athlete compared to me, struggle with basic rolls, but for me it was like second nature.
Yeah.
One of the things was when starting to learn holds, I was very, and Jordan Ayers could attest to this because he's had the same problem when he started.
Mm-hmm.
We were very like rough, rigid with a lot of our holds.
Okay. So like you like people would try to do stuff and you'd be like super stiff with them, and like not stiff in the fact that you would like, hit them in the face or something, but stiff in the fact that like you would be rigid and they try to move you and you're not like like I hate killing the magic, but in wrestling there's kind of a flow and a cooperation and a movement to everything. And then like if you're real rigid and stiff, it makes it awkward.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what sort of the problem was, but in time I was able to figure it out. And one other aspect is in amateur wrestling, obviously, you know what, you're focused on one person, you're keeping your head low, you're keeping yourself small, more tactical. Like when you're in like professional wrestling, you're taught, get your head up, look to the crowd, try and make yourself bigger than you truly are, because I hate to word it like this, but it's a show.
Mm-hmm.
In like the amateur aspect, you're taught to keep yourself in a more contained, very short. So that was a little bit of a barrier to break through, especially because I'm very antisocial. Sometimes you see me at some of the shows, very socially awkward at times.
Okay, that's fair. I mean, I'm the same way. I got like apparently they don't even diagnose Asperger's syndrome anymore. They just say you have autism now. So, but like it is what it is. I don't know. I that's like you saying this to me. I don't notice because I'm the same way. So I'm just like, oh, as long as you're cool to me in the locker room, I'll be cool to you.
Fair enough.
So the amateur wrestling, another big thing about, like you were mentioning, amateur wrestling is a sport, and pro wrestling is a show. And I think that one of the main keys is of amateur wrestling is there's no like promos. You're not going to get on there and be like, hey, bud, I'm going to see you next week down at the high school gym in front of all your friends and family. I'm going to make you feel embarrassed and like a loser, like a girl when I pin you on the mat. Like, it doesn't happen. Nobody cares, right? Like, you just show up and do it. Like, I mean, maybe there's schoolyard promos against each other. I don't know, but people aren't like releasing videos. You know, you're not like, if you smell what Danny Mayhem's cooking this Saturday at the PE meet, you know, I'm probably embarrassing myself and whatnot, but like, that's not an aspect of amateur wrestling, and it is an aspect of pro wrestling. How have you managed to like guide those aspects of it, to like take on that entirely new aspect of professional wrestling, like just the straight up performance stuff, like character work and stuff that's like not even a consideration in amateur wrestling?
So that has been a weird road. Well, one thing I would best describe it is breaking in. Despite what happened with my first like tag team match with Davey Disaster, a few months later, I was put with him, you know, as a tag team, and it was a good little way to break me in and give him like someone else to work with, because he was green in other elements and I was green with crowd interaction, but he was really good at that. So sort of the whole promo thing, it was a good little handicap, you know, starting out teaming with Davey, that I was able to adapt to that pretty decently.
Yeah. Do you cut a lot of promos?
Not as much as I probably should, but unfortunately, you know, indie wrestling card's subject to change, so I don't want to cut a promo that, you know, is posted on social media only to find the day of that so and so couldn't make it because insert three reasons.
I hear you. I mean, I am generally like I love cutting promos. I think it's kind of fun and a good way to like express your creativity or whatever. But it is one of those things that's like, it's challenging, right? Like you gotta practice at it. So like I don't know. I think you should do as many promos as you can, but I do understand where you're coming from, because there's been a lot of shows, especially like, I don't know, like, I mean, I'm not trying to call anyone out here or anything, but a lot of times at RCW, like, I don't even find out who I'm wrestling until like an hour before the show starts. You know, you'll show up and you'll be like, hey, to the promoter, hey, well, who am I wrestling tonight? And you'll be like, oh, I think you're going to be in this, but give me 5 minutes. I'll get back to you, right? And then you'll come back 5 minutes later. It completely changed to something else. You know, this has even happened one time with me and you. I was supposed to wrestle Michael May in a match in Calgary, one-on-one. And so I like all day I was thinking about it. I did a promo for it, everything. Got to the building and Squig was like, oh, hey, this is Danny Mayhem. He's in your match now. And I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I felt guilty about that because I didn't even let him know that I was showing up.
No. You have no reason to feel guilty. And like, if I was in your shoes, I'd have done the same thing. I showed up and been like, yeah, I'll do whatever you guys want me to do. And like, yeah, no, you have no reason to feel guilty. It was not on you. You were taking booking, and I was happy you got booked, paid to do that show. So yeah, and I thought the match turned out really well, and all the credit does go to Michael May, because I was like, oh, because it was one of those situations where, for me at least, and I know this isn't really like about me, the podcast, but like at that point, like in that particular match, like I had more matches than Michael May, and I definitely had more than like you had at the time. So it was like, oh no, now I kind of have to be like in charge of this match, and I have no clue. Like, I've been preparing for a one-on-one match, and no, but I thought Michael May, like he stepped up and like he put a lot of that match together.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I'm very grateful to him for that, because I was throwing a bone, but it's one of those things where like that's what I like about wrestling is it keeps you on your toes, right? Like you do get thrown bones, but it is easier to cut a promo if you know who you're wrestling.
Oh yeah.
Just to take it back to that, man. Who are I know that you've been like you said you were in the tag division in Can-Am for a long time, and I know you and Davey have had a bunch of matches with Sydney Steele and Sean Martin. Can you tell me a little bit about that, and how do you think working with those guys has helped you improve? Because I definitely know from my personal experiences that like being in the ring with Martins and just like on the road with him and stuff, he's got a good mind. He's a bit curmudgeon-y, but he's knows his stuff.
Oh yeah, Martins is incredible. So I've got the privilege to fight both of them one-on-one when me and Davey split up, but tag team wise, first time me and Davey fought them in a tag team match, it was March 2022 at Strathmore. Those guys, like, I'm to this day, sometimes I'm still intimidated by being around them, but you know, and I kind of feel like Can-Am's promoter Otto did put me in a position to fail in this situation, but it was like my 10th match, and me and Davey were main eventing against them for the tag team titles. So I'm panicking, like despite how many years in school, I'm still very green. And the match, it went rough, is probably the safe way to put it. And
Yeah.
after the match, like Martin's more specifically, like, he cussed me and Davey out. I think I was the one that blew the spots more, so I will say that I got cussed out. But Martin's eventually calmed down. I think the next morning he made like he made a group chat with like me, Steele, and Davey, and he like cut like he made certain points like, all right, here's the good bits. Davey, you did this well. Dan, you did good with this character bit. He did give me some acknowledgement because there was one point where I messed some stuff up, so Martins and Steele got legit mad and were stiffing me. He put it in the compliment section that was like, we didn't hear you complain one bit, so good on you for that. And he's like, listen, the reason that we grilled into you on that was because it's out of a place of passion. We want to see everyone succeed at this. And a few weeks later, we had another match with them. It went significantly better. And then we had another match against them, significantly better. And another match which was better. So, I mean, the first time was not the best. They gave us tough love, and we both grew and benefit from it.
Well, I'm glad it was a good learning experience for you, and that's kind of what I expected was that there was a learning experience. I didn't know you guys had a stinker and that there had been like a wow about it or anything like that. But that's interesting, and I like those situations you do learn from them. Like you said earlier, we were talking about Coda and how he cusses out the new guys and stuff, and he definitely cussed me out on a few occasions. But like it is one of those things where like you're only gonna get better if you know what you're doing poorly. Like, you know what I mean? Like sometimes you do have to be like it has to be pointed out to you like that was bad and this is why. And and then like you can take it from your lessons, and because like nobody likes getting like cussed out and run down. I mean people are here to have a good time and have fun, and like I'm like I'll be honest, I'm in independent wrestling because I like the attaboys, I like it when people go, oh, that was cool, that thing you did was cool, or I like you, or they cheer for you, or they or we don't like you, like anything. Like I like that aspect of it, but like just like the idea of somebody coming and cussing you out, like it is terrible, and it does make you want to get better. But so I think at the end of the day, like, because it's one of those things where a lot of people would be like, "Oh, this is horrible," and it doesn't have any place in wrestling. And I mean, to its extent, like like I don't know, like I don't know, like it's hard to say because like there was a few times where it seemed like the cuss out jobs were pretty, like they were throwing a lot of fuel on that fire when maybe a smaller fire would have got the same amount of, like, what I'm trying to do metaphors.
Oh yeah, I hear you.
And but you know what I mean? Like it was a really big cuss out when it could have just been like, hey, tune this up and we would have been fine. But like because it was so big, it was like, oh my god, I'm like terrified that I'll screw up next time, and you don't screw up the next time. So like those situations, like while they're very uncomfortable and they definitely take a toll on your mental health, I suppose. It can be a valuable lesson for you to learn, right? Like,
Oh yeah.
so it's even like with like it's the same with like other things. Like you were saying, they started like sending some potatoes your way, right? Like they were stiffing you or whatever, and like you didn't complain. Like, I mean, on one hand, like, yeah, great, it's good. Like you should play, but they also, it's definitely not cool to get frustrated and start beating up your opponent. But at the same time, I have a feeling that like there's a level of like what's acceptable. Like you can hit somebody pretty hard in some pretty safe places, and it's like, hey, I know that sucked, but if you don't want that to happen again, then sharpen up. But it ain't gonna kill you at the same time, right? You know what I mean? Like it
Oh
sucks.
yeah.
It sucks you hit hard, but as long as you can, get up and go to work the next day, and nobody's like taking liberties with the other person, like just trying to hurt them so that they look cool. Like that's kind of shit I don't particularly jive with.
Oh yeah, no. And one thing is about the whole criticism thing is I sometimes have self-esteem issues, so sometimes I don't like being nitpicked, but at the same time I also know that I might need to hear it at the same time. So sometimes it's good with the bad when I'm getting like nitpicked about some of my stuff, but I also get at least Martin's definitely like always picks apart my stuff, but it's like
I
very
mean,
good
that's
constructive.
like that's an advantage. Like he'll sit there and like the fact that he goes out of his way to like spend the time to go to critique your stuff means that he does like have some level of investment in you, and he wants to see you do well, right? Otherwise, he wouldn't waste his time. If he thought you sucked and he just wasn't entertained by you, then why would he watch his matches and try to help you get better?
Exactly.
Like,
So I mean that's like a pill to swallow. Like sometimes I have esteem issues, but at the same time I also know it's for my own good.
mhm. Yeah, I can sympathize with the esteem issues, buddy. I see a lot of like similarities between the two of us. I never did any amateur wrestling other than that one time the coach at PE handled me. But other than that, like I see similarities. Like we're both kind of awkward dudes and whatnot. But like yeah, what you're saying is 100%. Like your self-esteem, it might take a toll from getting a tongue lashing, but sometimes you have to get a tongue lashing so that your stuff will improve. But also like self-esteem is like it's a real rough one because it's not like you can't just be like, yeah, my self-esteem is cured, and then you walk around feeling awesome all the time. Like you just can't. I don't know what, it just, life doesn't work that way.
Oh yeah,
But
I
at the
hear you.
same time, confidence is free, right? So like I remember one time heavy metal told me that like confidence is free, and we were doing like some wild thing in training where we were like doing you had to springboard up onto the top rope and then jump into the ring or something. And I was like, I can't do no springboards. Are you crazy? And they were like, yeah, you can. You can do it just fine. Like And then there's been straight up other times in training where they'll be like, oh, they want me to do something that I feel is like kind of wild or crazy, but and I'll be like, I don't think I could do that. And they're like, why not? And I was like, I don't have the confidence to, but that's not really like, that's not you don't have the confidence to. Well, confidence is free, bro.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and like that's one of those things is like it was like it's another thing, like tongue lashings hurt, but so do the like physical beat downs. And like eventually like there was one time I used this as an example, and I've probably done it on Monday Night Talks, but I was in a tag match and it was me and somebody else against Colton Kelly and somebody else in Calgary, and Colton ended up catching me with a spin kick to the face, kicked me in the face and my nose started bleeding. And this is right at the end. And then the match ends. The ref is like, hey, Goose, your nose is bleeding. Pinch your nose and lean your head back or something, right? And I'm like, what? No, I'm going to wipe all this blood all over my face so I look like a psycho. Like it's just one of those. Yeah.
I think the match you're talking about, I might have been teaming with you if I remember correctly. I think it was me and you versus Colton Kelly and Cam. Well, now he's Cam Hansen, but he was Cameron Oates at the time.
Yeah, I remember. And he straight up spin kicked me in the face, and I was bleeding, and the ref was like all concerned, and I was like, "No, dude, I'm gonna look cool with all this blood on my face," like.
Yeah, you tried to like Mick Foley, Hell in a Cell face look at the camera. If I remember correctly.
It just smiled and looked like like the blood makes you happy, like it's like, and it's one of those weird things because like a couple of years ago, had I been hit and caused my nose to bleed, I'll be like, oh my god, I've been hit, and now I'm bleeding, and now it's like, oh, I'm bleeding, cool, like
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so it's just one of those weird like wrestling things. So you've had opportunities to wrestle with Davey Disaster and with the fellas from the brand. Who are some other real notable opponents that you've had the opportunity to get in the ring with, and especially people that you've learned some valuable lessons
from? So my first actual one-on-one match was against someone who I currently train with at the Alberta Wrestling Academy, but Travis Cole was my first, I feel like my first actual one-on-one match. And that was a fun experience to learn from, because I've heard of Travis's reputation and he was fun to work with. A few other people.
Travis is really good.
Oh, yeah. One of my best matches I had at RCW was ironically with Colton Kelly. We had a one-on-one match. I think one of the last few times I was there. And recently I've been having a fun series of matches with Jack Pride, which has been awesome.
Oh yeah, that does sound like fun. I the only time I ever wrestled with Jack Pride was in I was actually in the same match with you. It was at the Pavilion, the Victoria Pavilion. We did
that Battle Royal.
Yeah. And I remember me and you, we kind of we mixed it up a little in the Battle Royal, but then later on, Jack Pride started mixing it up with me. I remember because he was like there. I kept getting, for some reason, like the fans in the Pavilion were like Goose fans, right? So every once in a while, they just start honking it up for me, and Pride saw what was going on, so at the right before I got eliminated, he's like, "Hey, Goose, pull your comeback on me," right? So I go over and I think I clotheslined him once and then got jumped from Martins from behind, and he said, "Go out," and he tossed me out. It was good.
I remember fans gasping in disappointment when it looked like we were about to team up, and then I just randomly ambushed you.
Yeah. There was some stuff there where we were just like, okay, well, we'll do some stuff, and we'll maybe play off the fact that we had a tag team. I don't know how many people will know that, but we'll play off it. And yeah, I thought it went pretty decent. And then there was definitely one of my favorite spots from the match, which was definitely just like a botch. But sometimes those are my you know, so sometimes those are fond memories. Is I'm beating you up in the corner, and I'm just laying it into you, right? Like, shot, and across the way, the other corner opposite of us is Mason from MPW, and he's putting a beat down on some. I think he's like Saskatchewan farm guy or something.
Oh, Mike. Mason
Yeah,
Mayhem, ironically, was the guy's name.
yeah,
And
Mason
Mike,
Mayhem, and he was beating on Mike from Saskatchewan, who was like a farm guy. But I think I could be wrong, but his gimmick name might have been Mike the Farmer. I don't know.
Mike, it was Mike Miller. I think it's Country Boy Mike Miller, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, okay,
But
yeah, I'm thinking about a different guy. There's a guy now, I think Jake Richards, the farmer, Jake Richards or something.
oh
He's
yeah,
a guy. Yeah. But anyway, yeah. So Mason and him were fighting, and me and you were fighting, and I'm trying to get Mason's attention so we could do the old, I'll whip you into the middle, and he'll whip the other guy. You guys will both hit, or you can reverse, and me and Mason hit each other and whatever. But yeah, he's just not hearing me here because I'm going Mason, Mason.
yeah. I was
Mason.
like, God damn it!
And then I think the guy he was working over in the corner turned it around on him, and at that point I was just fuck this, just turn it around on me. Yeah.
Yeah,
But yeah, no, I think I was actually I really had a lot of fun working at that Victoria Pavilion show. How did you feel about that?
well, I enjoyed it. It was a fun few minutes, but best part about it is I could at least say on my resume that I got to fight in the pavilion, and those days are numbered. Feels like.
Well, I mean, I don't think that the pavilion's at any risk of being shut down, but I also know that, like, don't get me wrong, Dungeon Wrestling's been running some shows out of there, and from what I've heard, they've done really well, and that's great. But like, I have a feeling that they're associated with the pavilion just because like they're associated with Bret Hart, right? So they got like the biggest name in all of Alberta wrestling kind of behind them, so they probably. I don't know. I don't want to speculate on the business dealings of dungeon wrestling, but I think that there's probably a reason why they're able to book the Victoria Pavilion more regularly than other promotions are.
Oh yeah, no, that is a big factor that, again, not to throw speculations, but it is kind of a big sign or obvious sign that
I think it's super cool, and I do think that like I'm really like I think it's cool that Dungeon Wrestling has really like established something there and made like a big deal out of it, and like because like they've brought in guys like Chris Masters, Nick Aldis, like there's been a ton of big name stars on those dungeon shows, and they have gone like really well to the Victoria Pavilion there. Like I think that was one of the one of the misfires about the one we were on was it was definitely heavily promoted and whatnot, but it just like, turnout was I don't want to say disappointing, but not up to what the promoter was like expecting. You know what I mean?
yeah, one of the things, and I don't want to bury anyone involved because it was the 2-day show was filled with incredible talents, but there was no one to someone with star value to at least draw people in. Felt like I don't want to disrespect.
I hear what you mean. It was like all the biggest independent names in Canada, but the biggest name on the show was still an independent name. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the biggest. Yeah. I would say the two biggest names or like titles I would say would be the Billington Bulldogs, but that's just because, and no disrespect to them, incredible tag team.
Yeah.
But that's like playing into Stampede fame with Dynamite Kid and whatever. And then the other big name, just because he's with Impact, and all due respect to him, because he trained me for a bit, and that was Raj Singh.
Mhm.
Other than that, there wasn't really many people, name wise at least. Talent wise, everyone was incredible. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree with you. I think that's, I think that's cool. And I do hope that, they're like, obviously Wild Rose Sports Association, who ran that first show, they're still doing shows. So they're good. I mean, they've got one coming up on the 3rd of June in Calgary.
Oh yeah, I've
Yeah.
seen promotion for that. That looks like a fun card, actually.
Yeah. You're on that card, are you not?
Uh, I'm not currently advertised for that at the moment, but
Oh, okay. But
who
yeah, I
knows
mean,
if I still have the belt after this weekend because I do got two shows coming up. Friday I'm in Olds for Can-Am fighting Derek Cross. I don't think that's obviously going to be for the title, but I'm fighting a mystery opponent Saturday at the Kirby Center in Calgary, which who knows, mate, what will happen for that.
okay. Yeah. Oh, I see. Because, yeah, no, I did see that Davey Disaster was on the card and that he was advertised as having a cruiserweight title match. So I wasn't sure if you were going to get asked to join that or whatnot. But it doesn't sound like anything's been you've been approached yet. Hopefully, there'll be that'll be a great show, anyways. I'm looking forward to it. They asked me to come and announce, so I'm going to go announce for them. It's going to be a good time.
Oh yeah, that probably will be fun. I haven't gone to any Wild Rose other than the Pavilion show, but I hope to go down to one of them soon, once when I have time and able to.
Yeah, I did one for them recently in Medicine Hat, and it was a good time too. Medicine Hat is a long ways away, but it was a good time.
Oh yeah. Good. I mean, long ways away, but it's always got a passionate crowd behind it, at least.
Mm-hmm. Have you had the opportunity to do any traveling with wrestling yet? Like, have you gone out and done any like shows in Saskatchewan or BC or Manitoba or anything?
Not yet. I'm hoping in the summer to be doing some BC stuff because, unfortunately, the fact of the matter is BC is now one of the current hot spots in Western Canada for independent wrestling, from what I've
I think it's
noticed.
fantastic. Yeah.
So I'm looking into getting some BC dates. Hopefully some Saskatchewan down the road, but right now it's just mainly in close by areas that I'm currently working at the moment.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I mean, it can be hard to like, because like, well, I know that when I went and did the Saskatchewan thing with Danny Duggan, like you have to have like it's one of those things where you have to take like a few days off work and stuff. Like it's not like you go to Saskatchewan and on Friday night and you're back by Sunday. No, like it's usually like a week long thing or 4 or 5 days, right? And I know that you
Yeah.
have a job, so it's hard to get that kind of time off. But I would recommend that you definitely do look into the getting some bookings elsewhere. I think you'd be a great fit for Big West Wrestling. Yeah. Wait. All right, Danny. Well, anyway, we are approaching the end of the podcast here. Um, just give me. We've talked so far about a couple of your matches. One that was a real stinker, another and that one that was just like a 3 minute squash job against Coda. Why don't you give me? Tell me what your favorite match so far has been. Like just one where you had just such a great time, wrestling, or one that where the match turned out to be like really, really solid and you're really proud of
Um, because the fact that this was my first championship win, I would have to say my latest match, which was me and Davey Disaster in a chairs match at Okotoks for the title. That was an emotional moment for me. I would say maybe another match that I had. It's technically a two-parter sort of match, but back in December 2022, a show at the back alley First, it started out with me and Derek Cross one-on-one. Derek Cross cheats to beat me, and then Josh Kirby and Tyler Knox came out, mocking me because at that point I was on a losing streak, and Travis Cole and Jude Dawkins came out, helped me out. Main event was a 6-man tag, which the 6-man ended with me getting the win 1-2-3. I'd say that was one of my favorite matches.
Right on, man. That's great. Do you have a merchandise store? A place where you sell t-shirts or anything like that?
I am looking into getting t-shirts made. Right now, I sell the generic thing 8x10s, but also since I'm Daniel Mayhem on a day pass of the Pinoca Institution, I sell lanyards that have day pass written on them, and it's a picture of me.
Solid.
But I don't have any website for that yet. Mainly just
no, you just can't direct people to go to the Pinoca institution's website to get their Danny Mayhem merch. Can you imagine just like the psychologists are working? Hey, I'd like to get some of this cool Danny Mayhem swag. What?
Wait, who?
Yeah. Man, that's great though. But yeah, no, I recommend it. And then you get a Redbubble is free to sign up for, as far as I know. I didn't pay any money, and they host 12 different T-shirt designs for me. So I would definitely look into them. They're Canadian too, so because I don't know about you, but Pro Wrestling Tees is a great store and stuff. But when you're a Canadian, it's kind of lousy because they add on the shipping alone is as much as the T-shirt. You know what I mean? It's $30 just to get them to ship it to your house. And then you have to pay for the shirt on top of that. But with Redbubble, because it's Canadian and they're shipping it from inside Canada, it's literally I can have a shirt printed and sent to my house for $30. So. Oh,
nice.
Yeah, no, I highly recommend getting in business with Redbubble. I know Love Wrestling is they have a shop on Redbubble. I personally have a shop on Redbubble. So if you're watching this and you'd like to get some Love Wrestling merch, some Canadian Goose merch, hit up Redbubble and just do a search for Love Wrestling or do a search for Canadian Goose. If you do one for Canadian Goose KS, that'll definitely get you 12 of my fabulous T-shirt designs. Danny, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
It was a pleasure to just kind of go down memory lane with you. You brought back some stuff that I just I hadn't thought about Coda in a long time. Oh boy. Sometimes I laugh and to alleviate feelings of disparity or whatever. Anyway, so I want to thank you for coming on the show. Congratulations on the big championship victory.
Thank you.
I look forward to seeing more from you, and I hope that sometime down the road, once my knee is back, that we can tangle some more and maybe have some more tag team matches, or have some one-on-one matches. That'd be fun.
Yeah, can't wait.
Awesome, buddy. Yeah. Is there anything else you'd like to say to your fans right before we go?
Thank you for all the support, and hope to see you guys soon.
Okie dokie. This has been Monday Night Shaw. I'm Kyle Shaw, aka the Canadian Goose. For Danny Mayhem, I'm saying honk, 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 and thanks for tuning in.